2nd and Southeast Harrison Street. So I live out here in the numbers. So I don't know if I'm speaking out of turn to your organization, but I think that you might work closely with Friends of Trees. But in my neighborhood, I watched, with kind of like horror at the dying of the planted trees in a large kind of median divider on Southeast Cherry Hill, just south of Stark Street, near the I-205 mall. And I was greatly relieved to see it get replanted. And then the other day I was driving past there and I noticed many of the trees had started to die again. And I just wanted to bring it to your commission's attention. Some factors that might have had that, contribute is frequently there are homeless encampments in the area and maybe people didn't feel safe to water. But it's seemed really sad, loss of tree life and money in terms of the replanting. There are still things that are alive there. There's been a lot of pine put in, I noticed. They seem to be fairly successful, but nonetheless, it has been a fair die-off in that location. So just to bring it to your attention.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming and bringing that up for all of us to be aware of.
Yeah, thanks.
Appreciate your time.
All right. Aloha. Bye-bye.
Robin?
Yeah.
Could you repeat the locate? This is Jen Cairo, the city forester. So
hi.
There's a chance that those trees are part of our planting program. So if you could give me the location again, we can follow up on it.
Okay. So on Cherry Hill, just south of Stark Street. So I wouldn't know the address right there, but there's a restore that is located in that same area and the entrance to the Home Depot parking lot. So Cherry Hill widens out and splits and goes into a one-way at that location. And like I said, it may be an issue of just safety in watering. They might get there and say, things are looking a little dicey out here in the hood. But that might be the problem. So is that close enough in direction for you?
Yes, I'm sure we can find it from that. Thank you. And in the future, I'll report this today and our team will go look at it right away. In the future, if you see issues with those or other newly planted trees, the quickest way to get somebody to go look at them and potentially do something about it is to email trees@portlandoregon.gov with the description, and they'll route it to the right folks on our team.
Okay. I do have one. Let's see. How am I on time?
We're closing out our public comment, but I think it's fine if you have one more thing. If you had one more thing, I think it's okay.
Yeah, one more thing. So I'm noticing in my neighborhood as I'm walking around, street trees are being planted. I would assume that that's Friends of Trees. Very happy to see that, of course, out here in East Portland, but I'm kind of concerned about suitability of what's being put in. I can tell these are program trees, not just owner planted, and I'm seeing Dawn redwoods being planted in median strips. That's a really big tree and one that really needs a lot more root run, and I don't know how successful it will be in its location. So just maybe some due diligence on what they're allowing to be planted in median strips might be great.
Thanks. And I believe the street trees are all the urban forestry is planting those, correct? Is it urban forestry? This is Jen again, Robin.
Yeah.
We have a large planting program that includes free street trees. Yeah. It's still possible that others are doing that. For example, Bureau of Transportation. We're trying to kind of consolidate it all.
Yeah, this is more on residential streets. So I would say that it's, it's kind of that hell strip between a sidewalk and the street. So it's like a Dawn redwood, and there is whoa, I don't think that's going to work out very well in the long run. So
I'd like to put you in touch with someone on our planting team, since we do spend rightly a good amount of time on species selection.
Yeah.
So if maybe you could just email me your email address, which
And what's your email address?
Oh, we've got it.
We can
We've
actually
got your
follow up.
email address. My
Okay.
apologies. So we'll follow up with you.
That's great. Thanks
Sure.
so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Aloha. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Robin.
And then Noelle's here to give a public comment as well.
Yes. Hello, commissioners, staff. My name's Noelle Studer-Spivak. I'm with 350 PDX and the Shade Equity Coalition. We just wanted to voice our support for the urban forest plan and also invite everyone to come join us at McDaniel High School at Siskiyou and 82nd Avenue, Monday at 5 p.m. We're gonna have a really fun community celebration, really lifting up the benefits of trees in our urban spaces. And there'll be music, there'll be information on how people can support the plan, and then we're going to have a tree walk. It should be really fun, just 5 to 6:30 at McDaniel High School on Monday. Hope to see you there. Thanks.
Have a good comment about McDaniel? Are you associated with the high school or the trees over there?
A bit, yeah.
Yeah.
We rescued a bunch of them in the
Yeah.
spring.
I walk by there probably 3 or 4 times a week. Might be worth mentioning to getting the birch trees figured out a little bit. They're all, they're all kind of doing this right now.
Oh, yeah.
So it might be, yeah, any connection with whoever's trimming on this school district, I imagine that's good.
Hardly any budget for maintenance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Couple cuts will go a long way.
In my experiences, PPS is likes volunteer help.
Yes.
Yeah. Of course, that would be for them to decide.
Thank you.
Thanks, Noelle. Any other public comments?
That's all we had signed up.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to City Foresters report. Thank you, Co-Chair Plack. Good morning, commissioners and everyone. I have for you today 6 items. First up is Commissioner McMillan represented you all, the Forestry Commission, last week at City Council in recommending to a council committee that the council adopt the Portland Urban Forest Plan. So thank you to all of you and Commissioner McMillan for that. And that gives me the opportunity to thank you all. Co-Chair Plack and I were reflecting recently on how active this commission is and how many individuals step up to perform important tasks on behalf of the commission. And Melinda's recent appearance at council is a good illustration of that. I also want to mention those of you who are on the appeals board, that's really appreciated. Also co-chairs Feldstein and Plack for their time, and everyone else as well. Thank you so much for all the work you do for trees in the city. Second item is an introduction. We have a new staff person who will be here at commission meetings named Priscilla Salino. Priscilla just started with us a couple weeks ago, and her role is the Urban Forestry Division Administrative Lead, which we've never had before. Also, she will be or is our lead for budget and finance, a super important role. And another part of her work is administration of the Forestry Commission. Those of you who've been here for a while or attending for a while have noticed that we have sort of an ever revolving cast of staff helping, like Tiana. Thank you, Tiana, who's here today. Going forward, it should really mostly be Priscilla, and that will be great for all of us. Priscilla, would you like to say anything?
Thanks, Jen. Hi, everyone. My name is Priscilla Salino. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm coming from a nonprofit business operations background. I was with Mercy Corps for over 14 years in a variety of roles related to operations and finance. And I grew up in Portland. I live in the Foster Powell neighborhood, and it's one of the neighborhoods in Portland, many that has low tree canopy. I think it's between like 15 and 24%. And I recently volunteered to canvass in the neighborhood to promote the yard tree giveaway program. And I'm on the board of the neighborhood association as secretary. And so I also have a lot of experience helping support groups like this one. So I'm looking forward to working with all of you.
Awesome, it's good to meet you. Thank you, Priscilla. And thank you, Tiana, for your last Urban Forestry Commission meeting. Next item, Arbor Day is approaching. That is October 18th at Sacagawea Head Start. Lots of information on our webpage. If you're not familiar with Sacagawea Head Start, it's at 4800 Northeast 74th Avenue, so in Cully. The celebration runs from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So tight. Earlier in the day, starting at 8:30, is one of the yard tree giveaway events right there, also at Sacagawea Head Start. We are giving away up to 3 trees per Portland property this year, and we need folks to sign up in advance so we can have the trees there. We also appreciate volunteer help at the giveaway events, so if anyone of you or folks you know are interested in getting to handle young trees and hand them off to their happy new recipients, it's really fun. You can sign up online to do that. It's also an opportunity to meet our staff and other volunteers. And there will also be at Arbor Day some tree planting. Volunteers are also appreciated for that. Tabling with local nonprofits and tree-themed activities for kids and adults. And last but certainly not least, the NATO Awards, which you all will vote on today, will be presented by our own Commissioner Lilly. Thank you very much, JR, for being available to do that. Moving to my next item. Speaking of tree planting, thanks to PSEF funds, specifically those for the Equitable Tree Canopy Initiative, our tree planting efforts continue to expand. You might have seen some recent media coverage about this, which was really appreciated. We now have 29 partners contracted to work with on tree planting, including connecting with neighborhoods, property owners to sign them up in their communities. Of course, doing the actual planting and establishment for 3 years for the trees that receive that. Also pruning recently planted trees, structural pruning to set them up well for their many decades of future life and safe, productive form. There are lists of contractors on our web pages. Want to see that. Many are nonprofit community organizations focused on tree planting, collaborating with us on that in their neighborhoods, their own neighborhoods. And that includes a new contract that has begun with Friends of Trees. You might have read about that in the media as well. That's a $1.8 million contract to plant and establish and care for 750 trees starting this winter. And the establishment care, remember, is 3 years. So if it sounds like, gosh, that's really expensive per tree, there's a lot that goes into that. Watering for those 3 years during the warm months is at least one watering visit, often more than that per week. And there's also volunteer training and coordination that is work for people to do. So those types of things are all included in that cost. We're really excited to be working with Friends of Trees, and they'll be doing what they do so well. We volunteer groups in neighborhoods getting together, probably on Saturday mornings in the rain, to have coffee, donuts, celebrate, and plant. Let's see. Another reminder, all of the contracts that we have in urban forestry include warranties on the trees for 3 years. So that means if the tree fails, it is on the contractor to replace it and start establishment again. And our programs are focused still, as they have been for some time, in what we call priority neighborhoods. Those are neighborhoods that have low canopy and lower income, where the need is greatest. And if you all would like a future agenda item with more information on the planting programs and more detail, we would be really happy to do that for you. Okay, second to the last item, I'm sure you're all interested in the transition of the urban forestry permitting and regulation team to Portland Permitting and Development. That is officially occurring on October 1st as directed by council. The bureaus after that date, of course, will continue to be working closely together, not just through the transition, but ongoing. There's still a lot to figure out in terms of how to change operations and processes to fit this new structure. The focus right now is on transitioning the remaining staff and the existing functions over to PP&D. As you also know, as directed by council, the group was reduced by 10 positions. It's roughly a third. That has been completed. And the folks that remain still being determined, how many will move over to PP&D, hopefully all. And let's see, that of course means there's reduced capacity to do the permitting work because 10 positions have been removed. Capacity's always been a limitation for urban forestry and its permitting and regulation group. We were just, thanks to PSEF funding, getting to the point of improving on that. So we'll have to see how that plays out in the future now that it's reduced. I'll also say that there are impacts of this change and reduction on the services and responsibilities that remain in urban forestry. And here's an illustration. Part of the permitting and regulation team is the tree's single point of contact, SPOC, as we call it. So trees at and 823 tree. So October 1st, that function all moves to PP&D. And those folks have been really our intake point for everything, including things that are not related to permitting and regulation. And so we're working on how we will address that right now. And PP&D has expressed interest in coming to the commission this fall to talk about how they are taking on their new role. So we will work with the co-chairs on when to get that into an agenda. And I'm pleased that they want to do that. Last item is about the commission tour. Remember we were going to do that in September? Yeah. Sorry to say, there's a lot going on. We haven't really been able to put it together for September. So we're now looking at October. And one of our next steps will be to poll you all about dates that might work. There is maybe an opportunity also to have it instead of the regular business meeting. But we'll figure that out with the co-chairs, but watch your inbox for scheduling. That completes my report. If anyone has questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them.
Any questions? Commissioner Clapp.
Hi, thank you. City Forester Cairo, I'm curious about any potential job loss that is coming with the transition from the regulations crew to PP&D.
Yeah, good question, and one that is front and center of all of our team members' minds and mine too. Yes, as I've said in previous meetings, the city's budgeting and accounting systems are a bit challenging for this kind of a change. So the bureaus and the city budget office have been working on that. There is still potential that there will be further reductions from the permitting and regulation team as it moves over to PP&D. That hopefully will be decided soon and in favor of keeping all the staff that are still there. I'll mention also, Commissioner Clapp, we've had a number of vacancies come up in that team from folks who have opted to take positions elsewhere. So right now the team is even smaller than the 10 position reduction that was required. Do you have any other questions about that?
Not at this moment, no, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, let's move ahead to the Bill NATO community trees. Oh,
One more
sorry,
question.
Commissioner Vandenmark, didn't see your hand, sorry.
No worries. And this isn't actually about Jen, what you just shared, but I just wanted to note out loud that I am terming off of this commission in the next couple of months, or really maybe February. Brian, you can check me on that. And so just kind of noting that and inquiring whether we're gonna start the replacement process in the near future. Maybe you talked about this last month when I was in Norway, but
Norway, ooh, that sounds great. Thank you for bringing that up, Commissioner Vandermark. And yes, indeed, we were just talking about yesterday that we got to get going on recruitments, so that will be happening.
Yeah, and we'll be recruiting for multiples because we have one vacant seat at the moment still. Megan is terming off, and I think Megan's the only one terming off in February. So at least two seats. So we are going to start working that soon, and would appreciate all of your help connecting with networks you're connected to, getting the word out on this.
And just want to recognize that means you've been serving for 8
Yes.
years. 8 years.
Yes.
yeah, if my level of involvement seems like it's plummeted, I'm just 7, y'all, is, you know.
Well, I feel like something else happened around that time that was a big change. So
Yeah.
okay. You've given a lot.
Yes.
Question on this is, now that we don't have a city commissioner overseeing Parks and Rec, so urban forestry, there'll be a committee that will come up with recommended candidates. Then do those go to the deputy city administrator for his or her or their approval, and then? Okay. So
Yeah, and the city, technically the city administrator, how close to that the city administrator will be, tough to say, because gosh, I don't know how many advisory bodies there are in the city, hundreds, right?
Yeah.
Does it have to go to then a city council committee also before it goes to the city council?
Just go to
It
committee
does.
first.
It goes to committee first, then goes to the full city council. Yeah.
Okay, so it'll likely take a little longer to clear the hurdles.
Well perceived,
Like many things right now, it takes a little bit longer.
yes.
All the more reason to get
Yes,
started.
exactly, for sure. Yep.
But it is still the appointment, whenever it is finally made, they have a 4-year term starting from the first meeting they go to.
Yes, yeah, within, when the appointment is approved by council, it has dates attached to it, like the effective date of the appointment. And so there's some flexibility in when the actual start date is, but yeah, it's a 4-year term.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And of course, we'll let you know when the application is live, so you can share it around and encourage. Thank you.
Right. All right, well, now we'll move on to Bill Nato Community Tree Award.
Yep.
Hello, Marissa.
Hello.
Take it away.
Okay, just so I'm clear, I'm sharing my screen on this side. Or am I just talking to you guys?
We don't see your screen right now.
Oh, well, I was asking, yeah, okay, never mind.
If you want to, you can. Yeah, there we go.
Okay. I'm not sharing the work screen. Sorry. Okay, are you able to see my presentation?
We're seeing it with the slides on the left. You might want to put it in presentation mode.
Oh, it is in presentation mode, so. Okay, maybe for the sake of time, I will not share my screen. I didn't
Up to you.
Okay, I will jump in. There's not much you actually need to see on the presentation. But yes, so my name is Marissa Richardson. I am the education specialist with the community stewardship team in urban forestry. My team is responsible for education, engagement, community partnerships, and promotion of urban forestry programs. One of the programs that we run is our annual Arbor Day celebration. And at that event, we present the Bill Nato or the Nato Community Trees Awards. And I'm here today to talk to you about the process of nominating votes and deciding who will win the awards. Yeah, so just a little bit of background. Bill Nato, the Nato Awards were created to honor Bill Nato, who is a business and city civic leader and philanthropist who founded the Urban Forestry Commission in 1974 and served as the chair until his passing. Through his humor, persistence, and imaginative approach, Mr. Nato inspired many people to recognize the numerous benefits of trees and that they bring to the community. So the award was created by the commission in 1997, and there are two types available. One is an individual award for a specific person, and the other is a community or group award for a community group that's doing great work in the urban forest. Each year, the urban forestry staff collect nominations for individuals and group members in the months leading up to Arbor Day. Nominations are compiled by urban forestry staff and presented to you all for consideration. You all will vote to recognize one individual and one group award winner. And these awards will be presented at our annual Arbor Day celebration, which this year will occur on October 18th at Sacagawea Head Start, which is in the Cully neighborhood. Eligibility for the award. First, we want this award to be used to recognize volunteer efforts in support of our urban forest. The work must be completed within the city of Portland, and it needs to contribute to the betterment of our urban forest while inspiring others to recognize the beauty and importance of our city's trees. As something to consider in your evaluation, nominations will be reviewed for their degree of impact in the community, also for their quality, innovation, and degree to which the work serves as an examples for others to follow. Some examples of past awardees. So last year we had Mr. Ed Washington win the individual award. Mr. Ed Washington is a local civil rights hero and champion for our urban forest. He served as the chair for the Urban Forestry Commission from 1998 until 2006. The year before, we had a group award go to the Connecting Canopies Coalition. Their work promotes environmental justice and diversity in the green industry through their career development program for young professionals. And they work closely with urban forestry programs within the city. In 2022, the individual award went to Ginger Edwards, who is the founder of the Arbor Lodge Tree Team, and for all of her work in creating volunteer events, planting trees, and promoting trees within her neighborhood and beyond. And the group award for 2022 was to the No Ivy League, which is work to empower youth, educate the public, and remove English ivy from Portland's parks. So this year, we have 5 nominations for the individual award and 2 nominations for the group award. Now, briefly go over those nominees. First, we have Jonathan Moya, who is a community volunteer and recent Neighborhood Tree Stewards graduate. Next, we have Lise Gervais, who is a committed volunteer as well. She's been a tree steward since 2016. She's the leader of the Richmond Tree Team. She works as a crew lead for Friends of Trees. She works with Friends of Mount Tabor, and is a certified ISA arborist. The next person is Peter Condra, who is on the board of Green Lens for his work in organizing a tree planting event at Power Court Median. It was an event that took place over 2 days and required 2 years of planning and collaboration between multiple city bureaus and the county. The next person I have is Quadri Tyro, who actually was nominated with Vivek Chandas. And their nomination specifically was around their research in an article they published in 2025 titled Towards an Explicit Understanding of Network Governance in the Urban Forest Management. It's a case study in Portland and just kind of talks about the need for more unity in the approach of protecting the urban forest through internal and external stakeholders within the city of Portland. Vivek Chandas also had another nomination on his own for his work and research as a professor at PSU and his role on the National Board for Urban and Community Forestry. The two group awards are for the first is for Morningstar Baptist Church for their work over the last couple years in depaving a big lot near their church where they've planted 33 trees, created several raised garden beds and a food garden. And the last group nominee is the Heritage Tree Committee that is no longer in existence, but still has Heritage Tree volunteers. And it's for their work in supporting the Heritage Tree program that now has over 300 recognized heritage trees in the city. And it's a program that was started in 1970. So you all hopefully have received a packet of information that goes into more details about these nominees. But I just wanted to offer that little bit of information, and that concludes my presentation.
Thanks, Marissa. I had just a clarifying question. So Quadri, Tyrone, Vivek Chandas, they're for the individual award, even though they're kind of both for that together.
Yes, so the person that nominated them together for the individual award, but I do just want to stress that Vivek Chandas also was nominated just on his own as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, well, maybe we open it up for some discussion. This is always so hard because there's so many great nominees and doing amazing work, so it's always really difficult to make a decision. Any thoughts from commissioners?
I have, Vivek was chair of UFC for a number of years, has done some incredible research that is very supportive of the urban forest, both in this city and nationwide and probably broader than that. And so I'm torn between recognizing him as an individual or recognizing him along with a grad student from Africa who has done some really interesting research as part of, I think it's his master's project, something like that. It could be a PhD, I don't know. And so I'm sort of sorry to see Vivek in two. I mean, we've never had that. And it's great. That's the dilemma I have, but I am incredibly appreciative of the work that Vivek has done and continues to do. He is a strong advocate. He's polite in public. It's just amazing how I think he has changed the conversation, perhaps nationally. He's groundbreaking with his fellow researcher from, I think, Richmond, Virginia, where they're talking about redlining in the 30s relating to low canopy in those neighborhoods today. I don't know if there were other researchers who brought that up earlier, but that is certainly something that is so prevalent in conversations now that I don't believe existed before they put out their research.
then. Commissioner Vandermark?
Well, and I have both questions and comments, and one thing Bruce, I would want to elevate is I think the work that Dr. Shondas has done is amazing, and I do think he dedicates a lot of his time as a volunteer, and I always think there's a complexity between being paid for the work you do and volunteering their time, and just recognizing that there's also folks that they're just doing this in their weekend time or their other time on top of that. And I think that's a complicated nuance as we're trying to be more mindful of who has access to that and not. So that's just a layer I would invite in. And one thing I know that we've talked about in the past, whether or not it's the right lens, is just longevity in terms of people's commitment to something. Like sometimes people are doing a really exciting project and honoring that project. And sometimes we've talked about how long someone has been doing some of this work and seeing that kind of ongoing dedication. So those are just nuances I would bring in.
Commissioner Lee?
Yeah, I just thought out of the two groups, the Baptist Church, that project was I don't know, I think special, removing something that certainly doesn't help climate change, only makes it worse, and then planting trees is a valiant effort. So I liked seeing that project. But again, yeah, not sure about longevity to your point, Megan.
Commissioner Lilly?
Yeah, I got a question about the Bill NATO. Did we receive like all the nominees like information, like their any kind of background information?
Yes, Commissioner Lilly, in the email with all the agenda
Mhm.
information in it, there is information on the award, like what it's about, past recipients, and also each of the nominees. There's a write-up in there and some web links. And Marissa, if you want to add anything to that, feel free.
That was about all. Most nominees or nominations are pretty short. They're just a couple sentences, but for Vivek Chandas's 2 nominations and for the Morningstar Baptist Church and the Heritage Tree Committee, there are longer supplemental attachments.
Okay, great, thank you. Yeah, I'm afraid of like this is sort of like internal bias of like people I know. And there's folks I don't really know. And I was like expecting today to get a fuller description of why they meet their requirements for a Bill NATO award. Um, like out of the 5 criterias, they meet 4 of them in these ways, or if they were scored, if there was a weighted average system we were going to go through. Because I have a bias of, I'm just kind of recognizing of like, I know these folks, I know some people, and of course I want to like nominate them. Um, so just like voicing that out and but I agree. I think any one of these folks deserve the award and could really see myself supporting any one of them. Thank you.
Thanks for bringing that up. That's a really good point. We haven't always had like a systematic rubric or anything like that to sort of make these decisions on. So it does kind of favor folks we're more familiar with.
So I won't be voting on the group award since I made one of the nominees, or nominated one of the groups. I think it's always been a subjective choice, and at the same time, there's always been a recognition that, as was said earlier, these people or organizations are doing great things, and they help make our city as good as it can be, and hopefully will be better. But so you just so we're grateful, but I think each commissioner makes the decision using their own process.
I see Nick has a comment.
Hi, yes, I just wanted to, thanks for that, Bruce, and I just wanted to add, also just in response to JR's suggestion, I think that's great. We're always looking for process improvement for the NATO awards, and we can provide maybe in the future like a scoring rubric that you can use. But what we have done in the past is exactly what Bruce said. You have to consider in the evaluation, the degree of impact in the community, the quality, the innovation, and the degree to which the work serves as an example for others to follow. So keep those in mind as you're thinking about it. I know it's hard if you do have some familiarity with some of the nominees. Try to set aside your biases, and it's great, you know, voicing your biases, any known biases that are there, is really helpful, putting that out there too. So just offering that, and thank you for the suggestion too for improvement.
Thanks, Nick. That's helpful. I will share my bias, which is I think Dr. Shandis's work is the reason why I'm here, because it really did inspire me to join the Urban Forestry Commission when he was the chair. So I'm just putting that out there that that his work really spoke to me. But I hear you, Megan. It's so hard to differentiate, because that was a volunteer position when he was chairing the Urban Forestry Commission. But then you're right, a lot of his work is also part of his work, his position at PSU as a researcher and as a teacher. So it's a little hard to tease that apart, but yes.
Well, and I don't want to say dedicating your life to this, which is what I'm attempting to do, is a bad plan, you all. That's not what I'm saying, and I respect it. I'm just also wanting to recognize that there's folks that champion it in these other ways when maybe they're an accountant. I don't actually know what these people's jobs are, but just finding that nuance.
Absolutely.
So process here, we have a number of nominees for the individual award. Do we each get one vote and we'll run through all of the candidates, or do we want to just somebody suggest a particular individual and then we vote a yay or nay?
I feel like in the past, and you all can correct my memory, but my memory is that we had discussion, we kind of started to coalesce a little bit, and then somebody would make a motion, and then we would vote. So I think that's how we've done it in the past. Doesn't mean we have to do it the exact same way, but Commissioner Clark?
I say we just go for a vote.
A motion, or do you need me to vote on each one?
I guess I would make a motion. That way we can make a choice. I move to vote that Vivek Shandas wins it for the individual. And then I'll do another motion for the Morningstar Baptist Church to win the awards this year. I think they both embody all the things we're talking about. I mean, many of the people sitting on this commission right now specifically have called out Vivek for an inspiration. So that's a big part about this award. And the Morningstar Baptist Church, just reading through and listening to their work, like that's exactly what we want everyone to do. That is showing leadership and saying, we are going to do this. You can do it too. Here's how. So I think they both in this instance embody a lot of what this means. So those are my two motions, separate though. Morning Star Baptist Church for the group and Vivek Shandas individually for the individual.
Does everyone feel ready to vote, or is there more discussion?
Seems like there's no more discussion.
In a second. I'll just say, I was thinking about, like, I feel like, I don't want to speak for Dr. Shannon. I did think it was kind of special to think about him and one of his students, because I know being a teacher is so important to him, and but I don't want to assume that I know that would make him happier than getting the individual award, but that was a thought that I had, that, wow, it's a beautiful thought to think of him with his student, but that is a little bit, maybe it's a little less of a volunteer effort in the sense that it's his, master's project. So that is another thing that came to my mind about trying to make that decision. That while it's really important work, and I think it's going to be really influential work, it's not exactly a volunteer project in that sense.
That's fair.
I think I'm arguing myself towards seconding your motion. So I second Casey. So I guess we could vote all in, well, how about we do them one at a time? Because maybe that's a little easier. So how about we just focus on Dr. Shandas right now? The motion for Dr. Shandas to receive the award. So we have a motion, we have a second, so all in favor? It's unanimous. Any opposed? I think we, okay, so moved. So Dr. Shandas will receive the award. And then maybe we move on to the group award. So we have a motion for Morning Star Baptist Church. Just to piggyback on what you said, Commissioner Clapp, something that I thought was exciting about this project was also that it was funded with PSEF funds, which does kind of make it like something that another community group could be inspired by and also try to do, because there is funding out there for a project like this for future. So that made me feel kind of excited about that potential. Did anyone have other thoughts on the group? Yeah.
So I submitted the one for the Heritage Tree Committee. And granted, there's been urban forestry staff involved in this, but the Heritage Tree Program originated from volunteers. And for many years, the bulk of the work was done by volunteers. There's always been staff from urban forestry involved, and that staff has changed over the years. There's also generally been somebody from Wade Arboretum involved, but the early years of the Heritage Tree Program Committee, and I'm talking about in the early 90s, in the 90s, it is amazing how many trees were brought into the program. Now, some of them were probably bad selections to bring in, but still, going from 0 to, I forget, it's over 200 in 10 years. It's quite impressive. And the volunteer hours that were put in by especially the early people, and of course, my memory will fade. Phyllis Reynolds came in fairly early. Jane, I forget the name of it. Anyway, it's just incredible to think. And I don't know about heritage tree programs in other cities in terms of numbers, but it's a remarkable accomplishment in the years that it's been around. And it came about because there had been something in place since the 70s. And it had a whopping 2 trees on it in 20 years. So clearly there needed to be something better. And so volunteers stepped forward. It was Richard Seidman played a pivotal role. He was the founder of Friends of Trees, and he and Jane brought it up, stewarded it. So it's amazing. And in a way, my purpose is the committee does not exist in the same form anymore. And I just wanted to, I thought this would be an appropriate acknowledgement of the incredible work they did over 30 years, roughly. So.
I really, I really agree with what Bruce has said, and the big reason that I have that I went with Morningstar Baptist Church is I don't know, the scope of this project in a very specific place in a very specific time, and this being that this project just got done this last summertime. Feels impactful to look at that now or to talk about them now. But I really want the also to give it to the Heritage Tree Committee because that is like it's such a huge impact. Everything Bruce has said means so much to me. I take people out to look at those trees all the time, multiple times a year. So I guess because we can only choose one, you have to go with one or the other. And I would really like to look at the committee for next year because that I think they have to be. I think Bruce is exactly right. And I think they absolutely need to be seen because that program is huge. The program has saved so many trees and saved so many interesting things around the entire city of Portland. So I think that, yeah, I don't know. It's very, very hard decision, but I think that next year would be the perfect time. But who knows? Maybe it's gonna be another big project like this. I don't know. So I agree entirely, Bruce, I guess is what I'm saying.
Thanks. Commissioner Lilly?
Thank you. At the start of the day, I was like leaning towards the Heritage Tree Committee. And that's probably because like I know them pretty well. I mean, experience and like I love the work they do. But in the description, it's like that, that was submitted to us that's one paragraph in Morningstar and a link to a letter. And Morningstar Baptist got like 3 paragraphs and a ton of links. So it was a little bit like I wasn't sure what we were basing off of, like the information that I know that Heritage Tree Committee does that other people don't know. That's what's informing my vote. Or are we just supposed to vote off of like the information that's presented to us? So just to note that, and I think I'm coming around to the Baptist Church because I think if there was the Heritage Tree Committee has been around for so long, and multiple members have kind of gone through it. I don't know if it's like Heritage Tree Committee that exists like right now, like this year's current seat of the committee, or if it's like committee since front and back, and I don't know the full history of everything. Um, so just to share my thoughts on that.
Thank you, Commissioner Lilly. That was a great question about process, about do we just base it on the information that was given to us, or do we also bring in our prior? I think it's hard not to bring in our own experience, but I don't know that we actually have a guideline around that. I had a thought also. I totally agree with Commissioner Nelson about the importance of highlighting that it's not like the Heritage Tree Program just ran itself, but there was really the work of all these volunteers over many years. Is there a way to add that to the website somehow, or to tell that story on the Heritage Tree website page of how it's really been volunteers that have carried a lot of that work? Maybe it's already there. I'm trying to look now to see if maybe it's there and I just didn't realize, but I almost wonder about if that's because also what Commissioner Louie brought up, that it has been so many different people over many years. it might be hard to really award all of them this award, but I wonder if there's another way to recognize their contribution that might be more durable even on the website for the city.
I would guess that I'm hereditary manager is right here coincidentally.
Jeff is in the room.
And he's looking, but I appreciate the comments and we certainly can look and see if that's not there, add in that.
Thanks for that. That's good. That's good feedback.
Yeah.
Oh, and I see in the chat that Nick shared that there's also previous committee members who received the Bill NATO Award individually, so that's kind of helpful.
Phyllis Reynolds.
Oh, yeah.
Shane.
Laser
I
Rose.
believe that those received.
And I know there's been many more than that who have been part of it, many more. Well, we have a motion from Commissioner Clapp for Morning Star Baptist Church to receive the group award. Do we have a second from the commissioner? Commissioner Lee? Commissioner Lee seconds that, so we could take a vote. All in favor of Morning Star Baptist Church getting the group Bill Nito Award, raise your hand. Okay, any opposed? And I know we had a couple abstentions. Any abstentions? Okay, so
I'm just abstaining because Friends of Trees was involved specifically in this project.
Thank you. Thanks for clarifying. Did we have enough folks in that?
I think I saw 4. It happened fast.
Yeah, sorry.
Was
How
it
many people
4,
were here?
I think. I saw
6. So I think you're right.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so then how many do we have in attendance?
We have 6. Oh no, 7.
7. So yeah, 4 would be a majority. Yeah. Great, passes.
Thanks, commissioners. Wow, we made it right on time.
Yeah. Nicely done.
And I would love to follow up on that if we can look into another way to recognize, because I totally
Yeah, that's
agree. I
great.
appreciate everything you shared about the history. So
For sure. Yeah.
okay, we're moving on to Emerald Ash Borer response.
We got our friends here.
I know.
Great. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me today. My name's Anya Mocha. I'm the Forest Pests and Pathogens Coordinator with Urban Forestry. See if I can figure out how to share. There we go. Okay, so I'm here today to talk about emerald ash borer. As you may have heard, this has been in the news lately. So I wanted to give a little bit of background information, talk about what we've been doing to prepare for this, about the recent detection and confirmation of EAB in the city, and what we're going to do to respond. So some quick background information, just to level set. EAB is an invasive and highly destructive wood-boring beetle. It's been called one of the most, if not the most, destructive forest pests in the country. It's metallic green, 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch long, and it's actually the larva that hurts the tree and kills the tree. They feed beneath the bark, which girdles the tree and ultimately kills it. And all ash trees are susceptible. They're also known to feed on olive trees and white fringe trees sometimes as well. So in terms of life cycle, the adults beetles are active during the summer months. In the Pacific Northwest, it appears that they usually emerge around mid-June, although we don't have that many years of data. Individual adults live for about 3 weeks, during which time they mate and lay their eggs on the bark of the tree. But generally the summer months between June and September are when adults are active. Those eggs hatch and the larvae burrow beneath the bark where they feed on that inner bark area, grow, and then in the spring they emerge again. So generally when I think about this, I think about an active period being those summer months when the adults are flying around. And then the larvae are there during the dormant period as well all year round. Some quick information when we talk about, the damage that the beetles do to individual trees. Some of the symptoms you might see of the tree would be crown thinning, epicormic sprouting, maybe woodpecker flecking, or bark splitting. As we know with ash trees, a lot of these symptoms can show up from other types of stress as well. So these are not necessarily indicative of EAB, but these might be some of the first symptoms you would see and should push you to take a closer look. And then specific signs that a tree will display if it's infested with EAB would be these S-shaped larval galleries, which you may have seen on the previous slide. You could actually see underneath the bark split. The characteristic D-shaped exit hole, that's one way to tell it apart from like a woodpecker hole. And of course, if you happen to catch seeing the beetle itself or the larva, although that is pretty rare. So I mentioned this being, an incredibly destructive invasive beetle, but in terms of why we care specifically in Portland, ash trees make up a large portion of our urban canopy. We have an estimated 95,000 ash trees in Portland. We know from our street tree and park tree inventory projects exactly where those ash trees are in our developed parks and our streets. There are about 1,200 ash trees in the parks and around 10,000 on the streets. It's trickier to get that number for natural areas and private property. I think private property, we have around 16,000 estimated ash trees, and natural areas is where the largest portion of those trees are, around 71 to 72%, or 68,000 trees. So one of the big issues is that without proactive treatment or the use of an insecticide, all these ash trees will eventually become infested and die. EAB has around a 99% fatality rate, and it's never been successfully eradicated once it's shown up in a city. Another added wrinkle to EAB is that it's difficult to detect when it has shown up, as trees typically don't show symptoms until year 3 to 7. So in those first few years, EAB can be moving through a city unnoticed. I will also note that we have 2 ash trees that are heritage trees. And so those are being proactively treated already. We'll talk about some of these strategies more in a moment. But of those right-of-way trees, just 2 are ash. So we've been, monitoring this situation for a while. We've known EAB is in the area. It was first detected in the country in Michigan back in 2002, and then it spread throughout the Midwest and East Coast. A benefit of that is that we have over 2 decades now of research from those areas on strategies that have worked and haven't worked. In 2022, the first detection in Oregon showed up in Forest Grove in a school parking lot that was found by a BES employee actually. And then last summer, there was another major infestation found near Woodburn. And these 2 infestations were kind of near county lines. So the total number of counties infested at the end of last year was 4. So Washington County, Yamhill, Marion, and Clackamas counties. And then this summer, unfortunately, we did find EAB in Portland. This was an unwelcome development, but as I mentioned, not unexpected. So earlier this summer, a local arborist was working at the parking lot of the David Douglas Aquatic Center when he noticed some of those signs and symptoms of an EAB infestation. He reported that to the Oregon Invasive Species Hotline, where local experts were notified. Some of urban forestry staff went out along with staff from Oregon Department of Forestry. And we all agreed we saw those telltale signs, exit holes, and some of the larval galleries. However, because this would have been or is the first detection in Multnomah County, this requires official confirmation from USDA Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service, or APHIS. In order for APHIS to make that official confirmation, they require a physical sample of either the beetle or the larva, which we did not have at those initial visits. So City of Portland staff installed a couple of purple prism traps, both in that tree in the bottom right-hand corner. That was the original tree that was reported, and another ash tree on site. After about a month of regular trap checks, we were able to capture one adult beetle from those traps, which is shown there. That was first taken to ODA's lab for confirmation. They agreed that it was indeed EAB and sent it to APHIS for official confirmation. We got that at the end of August and were able to do the public announcement last week. So what happens now in terms of that immediate response to the detection? So this particular one, again, was found in a parking lot. There are 4 ash trees in that immediate area that appear to be showing signs of distress. So we will work with the David Douglas School District for them to determine next steps, but we would recommend removal and replacement of 4 of those trees. There are a number of other additional ash trees on the school district property. So we recommend to them that they get those assessed for any additional evidence of EAB, and if not, they could treat them with an insecticide to protect them against an infestation and be able to preserve that canopy. Urban forestry monitoring staff has already been out to visit all of the ash street trees within a 1-mile radius of the infestation to see if there is any spread or establish the boundary of that infestation. Within that 1-mile radius, there's nothing immediately that's showing up with any of those signs, so that is good news. Separate from this and ahead of this, as part of our response plan, we had already proactively treated all of the healthy ash trees within the developed parks in the city. And I'll talk about the rest of that plan in a minute. So jumping back a little bit, we just found it this summer, but the city has been preparing for this for several years. This is by no means an exhaustive list of everything that the city has been doing, but just a couple of highlights. As you may know, in 2019, we removed ash trees from the approved street tree planting list. We've been partnering and working closely with federal, state, and regional agencies as part of an Emerald Ash Borer State Task Force. That's been a really great resource for sharing tools, sharing what's worked, and staying informed on current developments. All of our work to update the street tree and park tree inventories is a useful tool, so we know exactly where those susceptible trees are in our parks and in the right of way. The work around reducing and removing tree permit fees helps us reduce some of the barriers for the public in managing their trees. And we've also been providing training for city staff and the public on how to identify signs and symptoms of EAB so we can have a broader detection network to prepare for this. And most significantly, earlier this summer, we released our own EAB response plan. This is our guiding document that provides direction on how to respond to EAB in Portland. It looked at a number of other municipalities across the country for best management plans and provided recommendations for both how we can manage our ash trees on city property and ways that we can reduce barriers for other people managing their trees as well. Going into a little bit more detail, there are a number of the recommendations that talk about how to respond at a citywide level. So that includes monitoring, how are we tracking both the arrival of EAB and the spread throughout the city. For the past couple of years, we've installed purple prism traps in trees around the city to note those locations. And again, using the traps was one part of the strategy in which we were able to get the official confirmation this year. We'll continue to do that to note if it's spreading in future years. Again, we've been working through some of the permitting challenges, finding ways to reduce barriers for people in managing their own ash trees. Wood waste is one thing we're paying close attention to for a number of reasons. Number one is just the potential for the volume of wood waste. When we talk about 95,000 ash trees, if those were all to die or be removed in a very short period of time, that volume of wood waste could completely overwhelm the system. So we want to try and make sure that we're slowing out the potential arc of the ash tree removals over time so we're not overwhelming the system. And wood waste also, there's a risk of inadvertently spreading EAB to other parts of the city if infested wood is accidentally moved. So we want to make sure we're paying attention and providing clear guidance on proper ways to dispose of that wood waste. And then finally, communication, both internally with our staff, all the people who are out working in natural areas, in parks, with trees every day, and through the public, through training and outreach events. That's been a push for us as well. For tree-specific management, the plan provided recommendations based on tree location. So with our developed park trees, overall, the plan is to treat all of our healthy trees to preserve that canopy. So that's all trees above 6 inches in diameter, or all ash trees, I should say, above 6 inches DBH in good condition. We began that in 2023 with a pilot program and received good results. So that is official and will be ongoing. They just completed their 3rd year of treatments. So far, 654 trees have been treated. And then any trees that don't qualify for treatment will be removed and replaced over a period of about 10 years. In natural areas, it's a little bit trickier. We have a lot more ash trees in those areas and they're more difficult to get to. So we're working on an addendum to the response plan that takes a look at natural areas. That's been a collaborative effort between a number of bureaus. One of the things we're starting with is a limited scope field inventory. So going out and looking for any ash trees of specific or special ecological value, or any ash trees that might pose a potential risk or hazard if they were to get infested and fall. They'll have the same suite of tools there. So treatment is an option there, proactive removal or replacement of those trees as well. Right now, street trees and private trees are managed by private owners. So for both of those, we're looking at ways to smooth out that process and facilitate management practices. We added emamectin benzoate, which is the insecticide that we recommend, to the approved chemical list, so people can apply for a permit to treat ash street trees with that. And then for both street trees and private trees, we're allowing for the removal and replacement of ash trees of all size and condition at this point. So if people are not interested in pursuing treatment and they want to get ahead and do a proactive removal of their ash tree and replace it with a different species, they can do that at this time. One of the big questions that might come up from people is, what can I do to help? So there are 3 main things that I like to say. Number 1 is, no matter if you have property, live in a house with ash trees, we can all focus on making sure that we're not inadvertently spreading EAB around the city or even to other counties. So the catchy way to say that is, don't move firewood. There's a lot of recreation that happens in this area. So making sure that you are buying and burning your firewood as closely to where you plan to use it. We say about 10 miles. But this goes beyond firewood as well. So any ash tree wood waste that you have, making sure that you're not transporting it far distances. Multnomah County is now part of ODA's transportation quarantine boundary. So ash tree wood waste cannot be moved outside of that boundary anyway. Cannot bring it, across the river to Clark County or anything like that. But the movement of these species through wood waste is one of the main ways that they move to new areas. Second, again, is just having that broad detection network so we can respond as quickly as possible. If you see an ash tree that looks like it may be infested with EAB, report that infestation to the Oregon Invasive Species Hotline. There's an online place you can report. The portal looks kind of like this, or there's a number that you can call. Again, this is really helpful. This is how we were able to respond so quickly to that infestation at the Aquatic Center. So if you see an ash tree, if you clearly note the location and include clear photos of what you're seeing that's causing you to suspect EAB in this case, then there's a network of experts that are able to review and respond to these reports. And then finally is managing any ash trees that you may have. I think it's helpful to think about it maybe during those two periods. We are nearing the end of September and heading into October, which will be our dormant period. One of the things we're doing now as a city, now that we have EAB, is a pruning and removal moratorium. So we don't want people removing trees or pruning ash trees during that active period of April to September. So we now want people to do that between October and March when those adult beetles aren't flying around. So October to March will be the time where we recommend removal and replacement of any ash trees. It's a good time to prune those ash trees. Adult beetles are not active right now. So if you see any shiny green beetles during that period, it is likely not EAB, and those don't need to be reported, but you may still see, the exit holes or the galleries of trees, and that would be something that you'd want to report to the hotline. During that active period, then your management strategies may change. In the spring after flowering, but before the adults emerge, is the best window to conduct those proactive chemical treatments. That's when you want to be extra cautious about transporting any wood materials, although year round, please be cautious about that. That is the #1 way things can move. And then again, don't prune or remove ash trees unless there's a hazard during that time period. If you're interested in learning more, we do have a city EAB webpage that will be continuing to update with information as it comes out. We also have an ash tree web map that takes that street tree and park tree inventory data and filters it out for just ash trees and provides some guidance on the sidebar there. So that's a great resource to point people to. The state also has a great website, OregonEAB.com. That's a landing page for a bunch of research if you're looking for additional information on insecticides, on management options, on some of the local networks and subcommittees. One thing I want to point out is they have a statewide map where you can see all of the positive traps they've received, as well as that quarantine boundary. So there's a screenshot there on the right side. They do provide management recommendations by zone, so you can see if you're within the 1 mile zone of a known infestation, 5 miles, or 25 miles, and tailor your management actions based on that. That was a very brief overview, but I believe we have time for questions and discussion. Thank you.
I have several questions, so bear with me. Kind of starting with the treatment times with ash. Is there there was a mention of going from April through September, which is a broad range of a treatment period. Is there a recommended preference window that's a little bit shorter than that the city's standing by?
Yeah, I think spring is your best time. There's research that they've done year round that it can still be effective. I think some things you want to avoid would be a drought stressed tree. So if it's a particularly hot summer, that's not going to be the best time. But really those windows when you get the most amount of movement so it can send the chemical through the whole vascular system.
Makes sense.
And they say after
After
flowering to
Yeah.
avoid any pollinator issues.
With the treatment and the permitting for the city street trees, is there still there's a requirement for the city to do a permit for treating these trees, even though they are registered as ash trees? Does the city need to do any verification right there? Or is there gonna be like an inspection based approval for a permit, which could be heavily delayed by our current delays in the system?
Yeah, so right now, it still goes through the typical chemical treatment permit process. We have some options in place where we're tracking the volume of permit requests we're getting related to ash, and we can kick into ways to expedite that process if that volume increases and we can't keep up.
I still have more questions. I might have missed this part, so I apologize. The ash trees were that had emerald ash borer found over in David Douglas area. Had those been removed?
Not yet.
Is there a plan for removal of those trees?
Yeah, so that's a decision for the school district to make because they are private property. My understanding is they are planning to, but we are in that moratorium right now. So we recommended removal beginning anytime after October 1st.
So is the moratorium different from like Dutch elm disease? If we have a tree with Dutch elm, that we have to have a moratorium on that, like we're more concerned with if an elm's dead in Portland right now, you can't prune it during a certain period of time. But we don't want to remove an ash tree during the moratorium.
Right, during April through September. As long as it's not an active hazard or dangerous, we would recommend, or we want to wait until October to remove it, because otherwise we risk cutting it and then dispersing any adult beetles onto neighboring trees.
It's the same, it's a little different than the DED window, but it's roughly the same and the purpose is the same, which is one of the vectors, or in this case, DED, it's vectors, in this case, pests itself. When are they active?
And then again, I might have missed this other part, there's a lot going on right there. The other ash, the city checked out around a bunch of trees within a mile radius. There was no other indication of them as of yet.
No, I mean, there are many of those trees that were stressed. They're street trees, they're small, they're ash. But there was nothing, there were no exit holes, no galleries or anything like that. So we'll keep an eye on that and continue to try and determine the bounds of that infestation and see if it's larger. But so far, the only tree we know of is in that parking lot.
Suspicious to be in a parking lot in the middle of outer southeast Portland and not being anywhere else, but.
Right.
Yeah, we're doing
It's like a little island. The current state map,
Yeah,
it's kind of scattershot.
yeah,
which
it is. It's strange.
like,
Yeah.
there's a good
Hitchhikers
chance
potentially,
there's
but
more in between.
yeah.
Yeah. There were 5 other positive traps around the state this summer. So it had jumped up near Oregon City and then another one just west of Beaverton, Aloha area. So it was moving in. In some of the early infestations, they're kind of tracking to see if it's following along some of the waterways, which is interesting.
That's the concerning part.
Which makes sense with
There's a lot of
ash.
ash trees there.
Yep.
Yeah, Tualatin River watershed's pretty.
Yeah, but the jump to the Hazelwood neighborhood, or not jump, it's within the expected range, but it was a maybe.
And they were parking lot trees that were discovered that had like 5x5 planting strips.
They're small
Yeah,
planting
really
areas.
stressed out trees
Yeah.
that might be more subjective to being, or not subjective, but capable of being impacted by the beetle. More, I guess, a question.
Can I add one thing to that?
Of course.
Is that the city, as Anya mentioned, has over 30 traps around and really in places that would be a high impact. We have a lot of ash trees. And they're checking those traps for the last time, the beetles are almost done flying. They're checking those, in the next week or 2?
Yeah, they've already been coming down. We took our traps down for the season and none of the traps that we had up hadn't caught anything. So
These are parks and natural areas.
Yep. Yep.
So we don't expect any more news of spread in Portland, I guess.
Yeah.
Good to know. And then as far as the debris management, being that the city does have a lot of land impacted by ash and there's a lot of parks that have ash. And if the city is ultimately gonna start taking over street tree maintenance, is there a plan for large debris management in place for the city? Is there incinerators being purchased or drum grinders or anything of that sort that funding is being found for there to manage?
Yeah, that's
95,000 plus trees.
A lot of trees.
Or let them stand in place.
Right, and hopefully a lot of those trees can be treated and we won't lose those. Right now, we're gonna start with chipping is an approved way as long as you chip small enough. And then looking at potential other options is one of the big next things we'll be looking at. The state task force has a wood waste subcommittee that's gonna be starting up to explore some options there. I know some other municipalities in the area have considered things like air curtain incinerators for biochar and things like that. So we will be looking into if that's a value for, you know, this urban setting or not.
And my final question. Is the moratorium official or recommended by the city of Portland?
Official.
That is a state moratorium.
State moratorium.
There's
To
a,
which we comply, correct?
there's a state quarantine on transportation and then a city moratorium on
Thanks for
granting approval.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
I see Commissioner Ranmark's had her hand up for a minute.
I love when people are engaged in conversation. So happy to be patient. I just had a couple questions. Like, one, I just saw that people are able to remove street trees or private property trees, right, kind of proactively as part of this. And I'm just curious if there is like a general recommendation that's being made, right? If, you know, if a resident has a street tree, kind of trying to think for the future, would it be recommended to remove and kind of be future forward? So that's one question I have. The second question is just, right, like thinking about programs like the Free Street Tree program, where there's a lot of canvassing that's happening, and whether you all are talking about like proactive, right? Like as part of that process, like proactively maybe using programs like that or other program to help support with replanting or not. And that the Free Street Tree program, I just think about how expansive it is in visiting sites and, you know, and planting them out. So I'm just curious. I know that's a whole new layer, but if that might be folded into a process to help residents with replanting.
Yeah, absolutely. Great questions. For trees, we are allowing the proactive removal, but our recommendation would be that if you have an ash tree that's in good or healthy condition, we would recommend treatment to protect and preserve that canopy. But if that's not an option or doesn't fit in that situation, we will allow for removal. And that's how, you know, we're approaching it in terms of conversations with the street tree maintenance and the city taking that on, is we would want to try and preserve those ash trees for as long as possible, as long as they're in good condition. And I'm definitely talking with other programs in urban forestry, both the street tree maintenance program, private tree care assistance, and I think with some of the planting team programs as well on ways to collaborate and figure out how to move this forward. I definitely talk with the community stewardship team on making sure we have information about this available when they're out tabling as well, and kind of getting the word out that way too.
Can I ask one follow-up question? And I don't know how this does not happen, but you know, in the work that I do, we have not been planting ash trees, but I've noticed that sometimes when ash trees are still planted is through like development projects or right, like required planting. And those are folks that are not steeped in the tree world, right? They're just meeting a permit requirement. And like, are we still seeing ash trees sold like local, like through like local purveyors? Because that's where I feel like we might even see ash trees still planted. Does that make sense what I'm saying? It's like, I don't think there's a lot of effort, but sometimes someone doesn't live and breathe in this world and an ash tree is free and they put it in the ground to meet a permit, and just kind of really trying to prevent that from happening.
Yeah, definitely. I know even anecdotally, some friends work on restoration projects and ash trees are even discounted and on sale in nurseries right now. So of some projects in Washington State and things like that where you can get those trees cheaper. We are working on alignment within the city where we do not recommend planting ash trees. So we're working through that with BPS and PP&D permitting too, to make sure we're all aligned on not having ash count for replanting and things like that. So there's a number of, there's our approved street tree planting list, which ash has not been on since 2019. I believe it is still on the Portland plant list and train landscape manual. So we're working on getting those officially taken off so that we're not adding ash that will likely fail shortly after.
Yeah, kind of following up on what Commissioner Vandermark was asking, that was my thought was, wow, this is a really complicated issue to communicate to a lot of different stakeholders, like for example, arborists, like making sure people know how to handle the wood waste if they have to take a tree down or pruning. So are you all able to, this is just, I don't know, but are you all able to reach out to the like licensed arborists in a pretty easy and direct way to just make sure they're up to date on all of the regulations?
Yeah, we've been including EAB information or pest information in the local tree care providers workshop for a number of years. I'm hoping to expand the information that's included in the next one as well. I think it's also been part of that two-way street of we have on the city webpage the local tree care provider list, but what we're finding a lot of the public is looking for is specifically licensed pesticide applicators too. So making sure that's included and that's kind of differentiated between the certified arborist and the pesticide applicator as well. And I think that there's room for communication there. I went out to a tree the other day that the homeowner had been told by an arborist that it was infested with EAB, and I saw none of the specific signs of EAB. There was a little bit of canopy thinning, but this arborist I think had maybe even refused treatment at that point because they thought it was infested. So I think there's lots of room for additional outreach and education on some of the specifics of this.
Yeah, that's a big challenge.
Yeah.
We need to cut it down.
Commissioner Lee.
Yeah, just to that point on education, like are there signs out in the areas where there are lots of ash trees that sort of show the signs and show the public like what to look out for when they're actually physically in the space?
Okay. Great question. Not yet. This summer we made an EAB communications plan that talks about these different ways to do some of the outreach and signage, especially for our natural areas that people are visiting and that have that sort of passive recreation, things like that, or our developed parks where treatment is happening is part of that communications plan for outreach. Part of the EAB state task force, some of the organizations in Washington County have been doing some work around signage and have tested a few different methods. So those are great resources that I'll be looking to as examples.
In the report or whatever you called this, on last table C at the end where it talks about the costs that would be involved in the different options, the 5 options. I actually was very confused by the cost estimates for when you're treating bigger trees versus smaller trees. The numbers didn't jive with me. If you treat everything above 6 inches, I would think that would be a greater expense than if you treat everything above 15 inches. Yet that wasn't what was showing in the table. So maybe I'm misunderstanding it. Taking a note from City Commissioner Ryan, I guess. Anyway, the figures were very confusing to me. And yet when you said you only treated the trees greater than 25 inches, it's even greater than what if you treat the trees that are 6 inches or more. So I don't, either there needs to be some explanation of where you get your numbers from, because to me, my mathematical interpretation, it makes no sense, because it should be more expensive to start treating at a lower diameter than treating at a higher one. But maybe I'm missing something there, what areas you're treating. I also have strong reservations about the amount of money that is proposed to be spending for treating ash trees that are going to be gone. I'm not sure that's the best use of limited resources, and the money is going to be even shorter for a while. So I just blown away by millions of dollars to treat ash trees. I understand prioritizing ash trees that are perhaps large in the city and give a great environmental benefit now. A smaller ash tree that gives us limited canopy right now, I don't know that that's a wise use of our money. It's very different than the elm situation because of the number of trees that are involved. Now, it is serious in the natural areas because Oregon ash is a major deciduous component of it that tolerates really wet conditions. And I don't know if we have other good replacement trees for that are natives. We probably don't. But I don't think the amount of money that you're talking about, I don't think it should be spent this way. I think we get rid of the ash trees as they're taken out. Now I hadn't thought of the load on wood that chippers can't chip up. Or get a big enough chipper, you can handle a good sized tree, I think. But I just don't think millions of dollars for ash treatments is a wise use of our resources, personally.
Did you want to address that question about the cost? Your question about why it's more expensive to treat the bigger trees only?
Yeah, I can do that, or.
Go for it.
Yeah, I think not having the table in front of me, the issue is the trade-off. So any tree that's not treated has to be removed, and removal is significantly more expensive than treatment. And so the more trees we're
not over time. If you're having to treat every 2 to 3 years, you're making multiple treatments over 10 years and even longer. No.
Yeah, the estimates we have, again, looking from other municipalities, is you can treat a tree for 20 years for the same cost as removal. And the risk with ash that gets really brittle when it dries out is that once a tree is infested and dies, that's a more expensive removal than a typical one. So a proactive removal is going to be a lower cost and safer for the arborist to remove that. So what we're trying to do with the treatments is acknowledge that ash will likely die, but we need to flatten that curve to spread out those removals over a longer period of time, so that not just with the wood waste, but crews and labor and capacity in general, they have time to remove all those trees in a safe manner.
And you're also spreading out, we don't just remove trees, we replant them, right? And so you're spreading out the sort of tax on the limited resources we have for planting, especially in parks, and establishment of those trees. You have to water them for 3 years. So if we took out 1,000 trees today, we would have a big glut of trees. We would need an army of trucks to water them for years, and flattening that curve also helps, the full cycle of growing this forest back after ash. I don't think the expectation is not necessarily treatment for the next 100 years of this tree. It is dealing with the glut now, buying us time, preserving canopy while we are doing all the great efforts to plant trees and grow the canopy in the meantime, knowing that this tree is not gonna live forever.
Okay, I think the message needs to come stronger. The goal is to not have ash trees. And we're working towards that as efficiently as we can. I didn't get that in the report, but it's not illegal to buy ash trees at Portland Nursery today. It's not illegal for a nursery to discount their ash trees. So a developer says, oh, that's a cheap tree to get. It's called dumping. But we also have some of the largest producers of shade trees in the country are in Multnomah County. And I don't know, there's no quarantine being put on them yet, is there? For they can't ship their ash trees out of the county. Ooh, that's a big hit.
Yeah.
Schmidt's probably talking about that. Whoa.
J. Franklin does not have ash on their inventory at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just verified that about 10 minutes ago.
Okay,
Just
all
out
right,
of
that's
curiosity.
interesting. That's a huge hit for the nursery industry.
They probably also haven't
lot
had
of
it for many
maples.
years because it's a dwindling species.
They've had time to adjust to that.
Yes. A lot of business in the east.
Right, yeah.
All right.
Quick question and actually one statement. As far as like you mentioned, not having ash as a tree in the future. There was a report that came out, OPB did a coverage on state scientists are currently trying to find a
Like a resistant.
species of ash, which, there there's a Chinese ash, if I'm not mistaken, that is poorly resistant. Clean Water Services did some coverage on that a while back. I think it's the Manchurian ash, if I'm not mistaken. There's definitely secondary species. Does the city have a list of riparian specific natural area alternative options? Is there a list? I Clean Water Services had provided one a year or so ago. Is there currently a list that prioritizes certain species over others?
Yeah, land stewardship team that manages the natural areas, they're working through, they have a couple of lists for them to use on replacement species. Oregon ash, there's nothing that just fills that niche the way that tree does, so it is unfortunate. And they are looking at trees and shrubs and ground cover and all ways to sort of underplant. They've been doing that. I know BES has been underplanting for many years. And using some species, even if they don't, provide the canopy that Oregon ash does, but it'll help prevent some invasive species from moving in as that's lost. So they have a couple of lists they're working on. And then we talk regularly with Clean Water Services and some of those Washington County ones on replacement species lists for that. And it's always a conversation and development of, are there ones we haven't thought of? Are there things we can use?
I have one comment, and I've gotten some pushback on it in the past with some folks. Strongly recommend pushing cottonwood to the top of those lists in riparian natural areas, not in parks, not on boulevards. We all know, or at least a lot of folks know that cottonwood is not the most ideal street tree. There's hundreds of street tree options to replace ash. I mean, ash is in the scheme of things, it's really not that common of a tree, in my opinion, for the city of Portland. That's what I work on a daily basis. But cottonwood is a species in a riparian area that fits a very similar profile of shade, fast growing, extremely fast growing. Shade provides cooling to streams, and streams that are cooler, healthier fish. I spent the last 2 days inventorying a area for Portland Water Bureau that was covered in specifically ash and cotton, and they were almost the same size as each other, and the whole area was very evenly distributed. There's definitely a niche of ash holding up riverbanks and other things like that, but I cannot emphasize enough that cottonwood should be at the top of many of these lists. Work hand if you have the power to do so. I really wish you could.
The city will smell amazing. That is the best smell in my
I've
opinion.
never heard someone say that. It gives me allergies, so I'm
no.
promoting something that makes me sneeze, but I'm also, I like it when they snow. It's always kind of nice. They are an excellent species for a lot of reasons.
Thanks for the comments. I think they are, from things I've seen, also from Clean Water Services, one of the few native species that isn't struggling with the climate crisis.
They're solid.
Yeah. Like alders are, a lot of the other riparian species. Appreciate the comment.
And one other comment about that, sorry to take time on this a lot. From Clean Water Services, I spent a field trip out there about a year ago. This is kind of their thought process on native plants, but one of the folks that are holding that conference, I don't know if anyone from here was there. They had mentioned that Dawn Redwood, kind of a full circle today.
Yeah, right.
is in a way a native species
Right.
based on it being in our native fossil record.
State fossil.
It is.
Yeah.
I have one in my living room, and in my backyard. They are a great tree in a lot of ways, and Clean Water Services has started experimenting with putting Dawn redwood as a semi-native. They've also mixed with, migratory species like black oak and things like that, but
Interesting.
they're fast growing as well.
Camera come on when you said that.
Huge debate. That's a fun debate to have.
We've talked about it.
Well, oh, sorry, Commissioner Wilson.
One other comment I had on the report, there's a map that shows the priority service areas for Portland, and it puts them in different shades of blue. But I don't know if there's a key in there that says which blue is 1, which is 2, and which is 3. Now, maybe it's there and I didn't see it, but I mean, I could kind of guess where they are because I'm guessing which areas are probably the lowest canopy, but I didn't see. Another part of the text referred to service areas 1, 2, and 3, but I didn't see on the map which blue is 1, which is 2, which is 3. So
sorry about that.
and it was probably taken from another document, and maybe it was in the other document that didn't make it over. So
Take a look. Yeah, thank you for that comment. I do want to recognize how proactive you all are being, and I know we've had a long time on the West Coast to sort of think about this, but just to see that you're ready to jump in with all the responses is. May I? Yeah, I'd like to recognize Anya's work and and Jeff's and Anya's predecessor's work on EAB management, Belinda Udelman, you all know so well. In a way, we're fortunate that to our east, there's a lot of experience with this destructive pest. And Belinda and Anya spent a lot of time looking at what other communities have done, what their experiences were, what was successful, what was not, in creating our response plan. So thank you very much for that work.
I got one more thing to add, just to note that the federal grant that Urban Forestry received as part of the coalition led by Friends of Trees, a good chunk of that funding is going towards treating ash trees in priority neighborhoods, mostly in East Portland, and removing and replacing smaller, less healthy ash trees as part of our response plan. So thankful to have that funding, and thankful to Megan and Friends of Trees for helping us get that funding.
You're here. I had like a very small technical question, but when we say 99% of ash trees don't survive, what does is that 1% like a healthy, thriving tree, or is it like limping along? Like, what do we get that's left?
It's part of the connection to some of that genetic research as well. They found on East Coast especially that EAB has gone through a forest, and there'll be an occasional ash that is just healthy and alive there. So they call them lingering ash, and they've started doing some of the genetic research out there. And so they're currently collecting Oregon ash seeds sort of all across the West Coast, California up through Washington for sure, if not into BC. So they're collecting those seeds now. I know even some of our Protect the Best crew with land stewardship is seeing if they can find any good quality seeds to send to the Genetic Resource Center. And then they'll set those up. And I think it's about 1 in every 1,000 trees or something that appears to be able to survive. So they're gonna set up test plots throughout the valley, and as EAB moves through the state, hopefully be able to trace back what it is and be able to use that. So
Yeah, I read something about it, like they're planting a whole bunch of them to sort of be ready to find that, hopefully that 1 in 1,000 that can survive it, and maybe that could be like the mother tree for a new generation of ash trees or something like that.
Yeah.
I want to add on to that in the earlier conversation about like take them all out now. So I am not old enough to remember the loss of the American chestnut, but I think it is an illustrative story where chestnut blight came and everyone cut down chestnuts really quickly. And so the chance for that genetic resistance was hardly recognized, and decades have been spent trying to recover that genetic path. So thanks for that question, and thanks for the answer, Anya. That's another reason to treat and keep some trees, trying to strike that balance of containing the impacts, leveling the curve, retaining canopy as best we can, but also recognizing that not infrequently there are some genetic strains that will be resistant, and then we continue to have ash if that's true. But they have to be there for us to find it.
Just to add, one consideration for natural areas in deciding to treat, it's one, ecological benefit, but two, they are looking at ash are one of the few genera of trees that have males and females. They don't have perfect flowers. They can't pollinate themselves. So if it's a female tree, it's more likely that they would choose to treat it in our natural areas, just on the off chance that one of those seeds becomes one of those lingering trees.
Commissioner Lee?
Thanks. I'm learning so much, so thanks for all of this and the proactivity. I'm sorry if you already touched on this, but are there other species that are hosts to EAB, and are they just not a concern really, or is it mainly just the ash?
Yeah, there is evidence that EAB will also infest olive trees and white fringe trees. There are significantly fewer of those in the city, so we mainly just reference ash when talking about it. Sometimes I'll say susceptible species to capture that. Those are included in some of those permitting updates we're making and things like that. And they're still doing research to know exactly how likely EAB is to infest them, but it has been known to show up in them occasionally.
One other question that I had was, is there this, I recognize this would be really expensive, but is there any talk of trying to notify homeowners or property owners when we know there's ash trees, just to be aware that you want to monitor your trees and kind of know about this risk?
Absolutely, yeah, that's something that I'm just starting to work on now that we have this detection is, do we want to do a mailer to that neighborhood specifically, especially now as we're entering that dormant period when it's a good time to do some of that tree work? What does that radius needs to be? Can it overlap with some of the planting programs and things like that? So that coordination is starting now.
I was confused in the report on page 20. It refers to PRK 3.10, which I think is saying you can't make treatments of trees using foliar sprays, trunk sprays, soil drenches, or neonicotinoids. I guess that's for any pest, and the reason there's that line is you want to maintain soil and water quality and protect pollinators. The wording, I'm not sure, is that saying there's no treatments allowed on city-owned trees? Because that's not true, but I was just baffled by the language.
Yeah, we do systemic injections of emamectin benzoate directly into the base of the tree. So it's not a spray, a trunk spray, or a soil drench that we use, but it's
So its injections are allowable, and that's the only thing that's allowed in terms of a pesticide application, I guess.
Yes, yeah, that's what we use for treating our ash trees.
So would that exclude the treatment of Roundup, which is applied as a?
So Roundup glyphosate is used in some parts.
I know, I'm
by
just
urban forestry.
wondering.
Could you maybe send what you're referring to? But it is part of the integrated pest management
Well, I'm still.
strategy for the city.
I've never seen this PRK 3.10. This was the first time I heard it, so.
Oh, it's just about neonicotinoid.
Yeah.
The text then is a little confusing, that it's only referring to neonicotinoids.
I think that's the intention,
Thank you.
because glyphosate is used.
Yeah, I know.
But
yeah.
within IPM, where by definition of an integrated pest management plan is supposed to be used minimally and only as absolutely necessary.
So I think just some commas or a few more words or something.
Yeah. Thank you.
And does the beetle only fly about a mile, the adult? Is that the information?
They can fly sort of on their own. I've heard up to 10 miles, but that would be pretty rare. Generally, they want to stay close to the tree they're on or up to a mile, but they can go further. And then especially for moving firewood, that's the main thing.
Yeah.
Can I ask one more question? I'm sorry if this opens up a whole thing, but I heard that Denver is one of the only cities where for some reason it didn't really spread and have the same impact. And I don't think necessarily because of anything they did, just some unique, I don't know, is there anything that you know about that? Yeah, is it the elevation, is it climate?
Yeah, I know it had shown up in Boulder first, and then Denver had been able to keep it at bay until this year. I
Oh, really?
believe they just confirmed it within
Okay.
Denver as well.
Okay.
They have I think a pretty robust public awareness campaign. Be a smart ash is what they call it. And yeah, I mean, there are some differences, I think, between Boulder and Denver that maybe work to their advantage,
Right,
but
yeah.
unfortunately it did just.
It did, okay,
up.
yeah, interesting.
I'm sure they'd let us borrow that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
I was just thinking, is that
Oh, yeah.
trademarked?
Go with it, yeah.
Any other last questions from commissioners? Well, thanks you all. That was a great presentation. I mean, not great in the sense it's very upsetting news, but like thanks for being able to answer all the questions. And
No, thank you for having me. Thank you all for your work here too.
well, with that, I think that closes out our meeting this month. So we will see you all in October.
Well,
Thank you.